Eyewitness News presents Newsmakers with your hosts, Jayne and Bugda and Andy Mehalshick.
Hello and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Andy Mehalshick.
And I'm Jayne Bugda. The UnitedWay of Wyoming Valley is marking a milestone, 100 years of service to the community and improving the lives of people across the Wyoming Valley.
Today, a trip down memory lane. We'll look at the UnitedWay through the years and its impact on our region and what the future holds. We'll introduce you to our guest.
And our conversation begins when this edition of Newsmakers returns right after this. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Jayne Bugda along with Andy Mehalshick, and today we have a unique opportunity to get a better understanding of how an organization has started and how it continues to make an impact on our community. We, of course, are talking about the UnitedWay. And Andy and I are happy to be back in studio. We are joined by Bill Jones, who is the president and CEO of the UnitedWay of the Wyoming Valley. And Bill, you're the current leader of the UnitedWay of the Wyoming Valley, and you did a lot of homework, my friend.
You know, there's. I'm glad to be here. First of all, you know, the history of the UnitedWay has been fascinating. We were started on October 11th, 1921, and it was really the Chamber of Commerce who wanted to have a more efficient way for all the causes in the community to be able to raise money. So they created this entity called the Community Welfare Federation and asked said that there was going to be one fundraising drive per year and asked the entire community to get behind it, and the proceeds of that event or that fundraising effort would help all of these causes that existed back in 1921.
Now, the UnitedWay evolved, of course, after all those years, 100 years. Let's go back, if we can, to the 50s and 60s. So it started 21 fundraiser. Obviously, it was expanding. How different was it in the 50s and 60s as compared to today?
Well, what was really interesting when the UnitedWay started, today we know the UnitedWay as, workplace campaigns. And that really drives the funding for our fundraising purposes. But back, when it was started, and through the 30s and 40s into the 50s, it was really hundreds of volunteers would canvass local neighborhoods, in Wilkes-Barre, in Pittston, in Nanticoke, in the Back Mountain. And it was those volunteers that would go door to door, knocking on doors, asking for a gift for all of these causes. And during the 50s and 60s, that began to change, and then it really became part of the workplace campaign effort. And so the organization's name had changed from the Community Welfare Federation to the Community War Chest to the Community Chest, and by the time the late 50s, it became what was called the United Fund.
And Bill, you did all this history yourself. So like when you start looking back and you start looking at how it changed and how it evolved, first of all, when did you do all?
Well, during COVID,
right.
when there was no events going on, it was a good time to start doing the homework.
So, we talk. You have some great pictures that we're also showing that you provided us with during the 40s and the 50s, the 60s. And of course, we see that, but then we see how the UnitedWay then helped during the 1970s, because of course, one of the biggest events in the 70s was, of course,
Sure.
the Agnes flood.
Yeah, so really at that time, all through a good part of our history, it was really about fundraising to support agencies. And during the 1972 flood, at that point, we were still the United Fund, and it was a real effort, a real plea to support the United Fund so the United Fund could get the dollars to the agencies, especially agencies at the time like the Red Cross, and others who were providing direct services. And I will tell you, that was a key milestone moment in the, for the community as well, because the community really stepped up to support the organization so that all of these agencies could receive funding, and those agencies really helped so many people in need back in the time.
And I hate to use the word a watershed moment, but it was a game changer, because then all of a sudden, and I'm speculating a little bit here, so many more people in the community were in need.
Oh yeah,
and you realized, boy, something's got to be done here.
Yeah, things changed, and new programs started, like Helpline, and lots of other things started right after the flood. to be able to serve the needs of the community. And in 1973, the United Fund changed its name to the UnitedWay, and things really began to change.
And just looking back to those earlier years, was there anything that stood out to you that was interesting?
Yeah, I think what was really neat, the community support, especially in the late 50s into the 60s, they used to have the kickoff of the campaign was a big parade. Oh. And the pictures were fascinating, that there would be thousands and thousands of people lining Market Street, and at that time there was they even had a Miss United Fund. Okay. And that would be the pageant queen that would ride on the float, and it was just a different time.
It's hard. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. I'm sure many of our viewers would remember that.
Sure,
I would bet. Certain age.
I would bet.
Now we have to remember, none of us were there at the time in the early '70s. Right. But when you look back at the commitment from so many people, they say this is the valley with a heart. But I'll say all of northeastern Pennsylvania, it's one of the most giving areas in the country for sure. And I think you can't imagine, though, this community without the UnitedWay now. You just can't even imagine.
Yeah, it has been a tremendous force for good. And I think most UnitedWays all throughout the viewing area, and there's many of us, we are really working hard to serve the community. And I'm proud of the work that we've done and are doing, today.
Let me ask you this question about the pandemic. You've always realized, and the community in general realized, the important work UnitedWay does. But with the pandemic, and still moving forward now with the pandemic, did you sit back and say, the work we do is really important now, especially because, again, the need exponentially grew.
For sure. And it was a challenging time because, many of our staff were working from home, and it was, what are the things that we could control, what can't we control? And in the course of our finding our history from our very first executive director that was hired in 1922 until, today, I'm lucky number 13.
Oh, okay.
And, I wonder what all of those folks thought during the Depression, during the war, during, the flood. And now, did they think any different than what I thought? What can we do as a UnitedWay during the pandemic? And because of all of that history, the community trusts the UnitedWay. Larger corporations trusted the UnitedWay, foundations trusted the UnitedWay, and they would call up and say, we have more money. How would you want to disperse it in the community, and who could you help? And so that years of earning trust, and we facilitated so much more philanthropy during COVID because of that trust. And it was we did an awful lot to be able to help the social service needs and network and the safety net of the community, and we continue to do that.
And you're right, you make a good point there, because the UnitedWay was there during the Depression. It was there during World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam, and every generation faces a challenge. But and it's interesting how those challenges, they're all tremendous, but they all a little bit different too.
That's right. That's right. And the response, money kind of makes the world go round at times, and it's needed to buy the goods and services or take care of the need at the time. And the UnitedWay has really, over the course of a century, has earned the community's trust that we're getting the job done.
And like I said, you had sent us some great great pictures of different throughout the years. Is there any one type of program that still carries through from 1921?
Well, the fundraising piece and service to agencies, and why they've changed over the course of time. There's some ones that we've been funding for decades. I'm proud over the course of 100 years, or 99 campaigns, as we start our 100th campaign this year, $213 million was raised in the community. In our community, that's a big chunk of dollars over the course of time. And that money was raised so that people got help. And, credit to all of those volunteers, credit to all those, individual donors, those companies that supported the work of the organization, because ultimately our community stayed stronger or it helped those people in need with all those dollars over time.
What's really amazing is, and we've done telethons over the years and fundraisers and dinners for so many groups. We had so many great groups on Newsmakers. How many unsung heroes out there, people who, whether they be volunteers or those who donate money or time, they don't want any attention. They just want to help out their neighbor.
And just generous people, good people, generous with their time, generous with their dollars. And, they wanted somewhere that they know that if I give my time, if I give my money to, is it going to be used well? And I think the United Way has proven over the years, over and over and over, that the answer to that question is yes.
Do you feel that burden on you personally, on a personal note? Because you're the point man, you're the quarterback of the team, and you know that whatever happens, good or bad, the buck stops at your desk.
There's no question. We really take the trust of the community to heart. We want to make sure that if a donor wants to know what's happening with their gift, or the community wants to know how is the United Way funding being used, we want to be very clear on, how our dollars are being spent and what impact we're looking to have.
Bill, I think it's clear that, I see it, Andy, we see the passion that you have for this group and for your organization and for our region.
Sure.
And I know you've been with the United Way. How many years are you there now?
I'm going on 10.
10 years? Yeah. So you're marking a little milestone yourself.
So 1/10 of those 100 years
just a little
are
bit
yours.
That's 10%.
Yeah, that's right.
So what, in your opinion, is the greatest accomplishment of the United Way in the Wyoming Valley?
I'll tell you, that's such a good question. And I think when I look over time, raising all of that money, that is a big deal. That is an accomplishment, and people got help. But I think to answer that question, and I don't want to say that it's happening under my watch, but for 93 years, we were raising money to meet needs. Needs would grow, and we would come into the community and say a need happened, and we would raise money and be reactive to try to meet a need that existed. 7 years ago, when we switched our model to poverty to possibility and our focus on childhood poverty, our board said, we will never be able to keep raising enough money to keep meeting the ever-increasing needs. What we need to do is be more strategic and thoughtful about how our donor dollars are used and begin to reduce need in the community. And so now our focus has changed. As of 7 years ago, our focus has changed. And while it's too early to say we've solved childhood poverty, of course, because it's still a huge number, I think that shift, that transformational shift, will prove to be a very big accomplishment over the course of time.
And how you attack the problem.
That's right.
Or short circuit it before it becomes a problem.
That's right. Right now our thinking is can we be preventative of problems as opposed to trying to fund solutions? If we could prevent a problem, that old adage that a ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We're trying to, dollars are limited. And if we could be that ounce of prevention now because we're more strategic and thoughtful about how dollars are used, can we prevent the expensive, resolution of needs if we can prevent them from ever happening in the first place?
Bill, you talk about poverty in the community, and you also, you write about it in our local newspapers and all that. And so how does the United Way help the children basing on programs?
Our focus today, we know the strength of a community is one of the key measurements of the strength and health of a community, believe it or not, is the high school graduation rate. And so if we want to strengthen our community, we've got to work on improving the high school graduation rate. A key indicator for that are, believe it or not, reading levels at the third grade. Up until third grade, we're all learning how to read. Fourth grade on, we need to read to learn. And so the national statistic tested over and over and over is that 23% of kids coming out of third grade that aren't proficient in reading becomes that class's dropout rate. And so if we want to prevent kids from dropping out of school, we need to really focus early in life, early in their academic, pursuits, those early grades, get them proficient reading, by third grade, and their chances of success expand by 4 times. And so the state of Pennsylvania has a goal in 2030 that reading proficiency would be 81% coming out of 3rd grade. Today, we're in the 60s. So we have a long way to go. And so if we're working on improving the community, dealing with the issues of poverty, this is where it starts. And poverty, of course, poverty is measured by income in a family. We're not changing family incomes right now. What we're doing is making it possible for kids in the future to be able to have those jobs and those skill sets so they can have the earning potential that their generation and the following generations aren't in poverty. And
if I remember correctly, we've done several stories on your efforts. Having a child being able to get a healthy meal and being able to have a good quality of the home life improved. Yeah. And the parents may be in a situation they're doing the best they can.
Yep, sure.
But able to step in and say, that little boy or girl is going to school with a full stomach, or when they go to school, they'll have a good meal. Yep. How does that factor into the equation?
All of those things play a role. The health of a child plays a role, their development, we just started a new program that I'm very, very proud of called Seed to Succeed. We learned that in the Wilkes-Barre School District, 10% of kids did not pass the school's vision screening test, and that's really no big deal. What is a big deal, of those nearly 700 kids that didn't pass the school screening test, this was right before COVID, only 16% of those kids got the glasses they needed, which meant 84% of kids, 590 some kids, did not get the glasses they needed. So it's hard to learn, it's hard to read if you can't see well. So one of our solutions is that we have created a rotating eye clinic that will go from building to building to building to building in the Wilkes-Barre School District. And those kids that need glasses with parental consent will get the glasses that they need. We just a couple months ago, we put the first pair of glasses, on kids. I was very proud of that. And so we're going to do that in the Wilkes-Barre School District and then expand it to the Hanover School District this school year. And those little things are making a difference for those kids to improve the odds of their success.
And you always say this, and I think it's true, you always say that, when you look at One United Way, you're looking at One United Way. Right. And this program, is this unique with the glasses?
This is, there's some other United Ways that are investing in vision programs that look different, like mobile vision clinics or something like that. But for our community, this is what we thought was an effective, affordable solution. And so we're the first doing it. We're really proud of it.
Well, and we're proud of a lot of the accomplishments of the United Way that we're learning about today through its 100-year history with Bill Jones. Andy and I will be back in a few short minutes. We're going to remind you that everything you're seeing today can be found on pahomepage.com. We're under the Newsmakers link. And you are watching Newsmakers, and we are a proud recipient of 3 Pennsylvania Association Broadcasting Awards for Excellence in Public Affairs Programming and a Keystone State Award for Talk Show. We'll be back right after this.
Welcome back to Eyewitness Newsmakers. Andy Mehalshick, Jayne Bugda, and our special guest today, Bill Jones, President and CEO, United Way of Wyoming Valley, talking about their history, 100 years this year, celebrating, and talking about how it's helped our great community by the great efforts of volunteers and donors and that kind of thing. Let's talk about the Nurses Pantry. Yeah. I did several stories on that. What is the Nurses Pantry? What impact do you know it's having in the area?
Yeah, it's another one of our programs that are new that was started here. We love it. It's now in 22 school buildings throughout Wyoming Valley. And one of the things that we learn in our partnerships with the schools is that kids miss school for lots of reasons other than being sick. And if you're going to do well in school, you have to be there. So attendance is a real big deal. So when kids are missing for certain, for reasons, we wanted to find out what they were. So when we talked to school officials, school nurses, we heard some just great examples. One that I've told often is that one boy went to school 3 days a week and his younger brother 2. The next week the younger brother 2, the older brother 3, and they kept alternating. And the school made an assumption that maybe there was another sibling at home and one of the boys had to stay home to babysit. Well, when the older boy got to school and the school asked him that, question, what's going on at home and, why are you missing, every other day? It wasn't nearly as complicated. They were alternating what days of school they were going to because they were sharing the same pair of sneakers.
How sad.
Look at all the school that was being missed over a pair of sneakers. So what we did, and we found that lice kits and hygiene items, and if people don't have those things or clean clothes, they don't want to go to school. And so if you're not in school, you're not learning. If you're not learning, you're not progressing towards those key milestones in your academic career. So we created what's called the Nurses Pantry, and we're giving these school buildings the supplies that they need, the hygiene items, the supplies, the clothing, the sneakers. What does a kid need so they're not missing school? And those supplies are in 22 of the lowest income school buildings, and as our resources allow, we're trying to get into more and more school buildings, but it's powerful and we know the kids are being helped.
Bill, volunteers are the backbone of all organizations. You need volunteers. Tell us a little bit about the need for volunteers and the Day of Caring.
Day of Caring, we've been doing it for 29 years. Next year will be the 30th year, and it's when employees from companies all over Wyoming Valley want to volunteer and come out and do projects, all around the community. Last 2 years have been a little bit challenging because of COVID, but we want to get back to, when we would have 800-900 volunteers just doing all great kind of projects, and at agencies and other good, causes all throughout Wyoming Valley. And this year just alone, even though it was down because of COVID, we had over $50,000 worth of volunteer value that's helping all of these causes, and that's really because of the generosity of our companies and the time of their employees to put caring into action.
Bill, if somebody's watching out there right now, I'm sure, whether it be individuals, companies, whatever, and saying, you know what, I want to help, I'm not sure exactly how. One, what do you need the most? Top one or two items or things, and number two, how can people get involved?
So to answer that question this year, this is our 100th campaign, and I would love folks to be able to say we want to support and make the 100th campaign, and as we enter the second century of service, that we're doing it with great financial strength, so these programs can continue. So if folks can donate, that would be awesome. If folks are looking to do service, go on our website, call us. We'll get you connected to the opportunities that are right for you. And for all of those folks who are hearing this that aren't in Wyoming Valley, call your local UnitedWays, and they'll be able to help you as well.
And is there anything special you're looking forward to in the next 100 years?
You know what?
Besides being on Newsmakers.
Right.
You know what? If we could crush childhood poverty, that would be my goal. That would be my dream. Because the next generations of kids and this community just gets even stronger. We're going to keep working towards those kind of goals, and as ideal as that is, and it may never happen, but the more kids we help, the more futures and more generations we touch, things will get better for their families.
And so many parents are out there, or grandparents, like I'm a new grandfather now. By the way, these pictures and video you got together, they are
awesome?
Priceless. And you look at these, like that child's face. That could be 2021. Yeah. That could be 1925. Yeah. And you're saying about kids, and I guess because I'm a grandfather now, I've always loved kids, but you realize how innocent they are, and they deserve a good life.
Right. That's right.
And parents do their best. And,
That's right.
You guys are doing such a great thing trying to help them out.
Help kids. It doesn't, why they're in the position that they're in. They weren't asked to be, living or being born in poverty. If we could help them improve the odds of their success, we're doing a great service for them and for the generations that follow in their family.
And Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you want to give to the UnitedWay, but if you wanted to give to a certain agency within the UnitedWay, a certain group, you can always
always designate. That's correct.
So that and that happens. And
That's
how
right.
many organizations within in the Wyoming Valley?
Right now, 20 organizations are being funded every year with the UnitedWay funding, and You know, many of those are focused on childhood poverty, but we haven't abandoned the safety net. And things like homelessness and 211 and domestic violence and all of those really good causes, CEO and all the work that they've done during the pandemic, it is, you know, those organizations are still being funded as well. And, you know, it's important that we keep the safety net strong.
I'll close on this note, and we tell stories every day. We tell good, the bad, and the ugly over the years in Eyewitness News. And my wife always points out, she's the brains of the operation. She'll say, everybody has a story. Everyone, you see, they may be smiling at the grocery store, putting gas in their car, walking down the street, but everyone has a story, good or bad. So, and you're helping, hopefully, make those stories better for people.
We hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And we want to remind everyone that if you are interested in learning more about the United Way, we have information on pahomepage.com. We're under the Newsmakers link. Bill, you mentioned the parade. There you go. There's a goal for you. You should get a kickoff parade.
People like parades.
Right, they do. You can see the video that we show here today and more information on the United Way, pahomepage.com, under the Newsmakers link. Bill, thank you for all you do, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And thank you.
For Andy Mehalshick and everyone behind the scenes, I'm Jayne Bugda. Thank you so much for making Newsmakers part of your day, and we'll talk again next time.